LeBron James has tested positive for COVID despite a double vax. That is reportedly the case with the Lakers star. He is out now for up to 10 days. LeBron is soon to turn, if he hasn't already, 37 years old. We also have had Mike McCarthy test positive. Lots of other NFL players. I believe there are 29 NFL players that have currently tested positive for COVID. It's not going away. It's never going to leave. The idea that we could vaccinate our way out of COVID has been proven to be a falsehood. I'll give you an example. Vermont is one of the most vaccinated states in all of the United States, and it still is the case that Vermont has got a massively high rate of hospitalization. In fact, hospitalizations in Vermont have reached an all-time new high despite 99% of seniors fully vaccinated and around 65% having already gotten their booster. So Vermont, which is one of the most vaccinated states in all of the country, one of the most vaccinated places in the world, has just hit an all-time high when it comes to COVID hospitalizations. And what I point out about this, by the way, Florida has the lowest rate, even though most people aren't talking about it. What I would talk about this in a significant way, and why I think it's an important story, is because it proves that you can't vaccinate yourself out of COVID. That this Dr. Fauci idea that if everybody just got vaccinated and everybody got boosted, that COVID would go away is not true. And they are selling you an artificial bill of goods. And there's lots of prominent people, LeBron, Mike McCarthy, any number of prominent athletes all over the country and coaches who have already had COVID yet are testing positive after the double vax. And a study out of a prison found, interestingly, that there was no difference in the rate of spread of COVID whether you were vaccinated or unvaccinated. Now, the data does suggest that if you are vaccinated, you are more protected against hospitalization or severe health issues. I told my own parents, get vaccinated. They're over 75. I told my in-laws, hey, you should get vaccinated. I also told them, hey, you should probably get boosted. But that doesn't mean that I'm going to do it for my children. I look at the data, I analyze risk, and the data reflects that children are not at risk, that people like me who have already had COVID are not at risk. And so I think it's important to talk about the data in a significant way. Omicron is now the newest Delta variant, which sounds a little bit like a transformer. It is now in California. A person traveling from South Africa on November 22nd has tested positive in California for the newest variant of COVID. Now, we don't know how much this new variant is going to spread. We don't even know, frankly, whether the new variant is more dangerous than Delta, whether it is going to create more issues for us as a country. But what I would point out is how inconsistent the logic is. The Biden administration is reportedly, according to the Washington Post, prepared to require anyone coming into the United States to have a negative test within 1 day of arrival. Well, that wouldn't have mattered, by the way, for the person in California because they tested positive 7 days after they returned. But also, it's not even being applied at our southern border. Our border is a sieve. People can come right across the border with no issues at all, and yet we are not in any way restricting their ability to enter the country. We aren't mandating vaccines for illegal immigrants. Dr. Fauci was asked about that, said it was a different situation, but I don't really think it is. If you or I go down to Mexico, before we can fly back into the country, we have to test negative for COVID now under proposed rules that are going to be in effect. But if you or I walk across the border and we are non-citizens and we are illegal immigrants, we aren't being tested for COVID most of the time at all, unless there are symptoms present. Given the fact that many of the people crossing the border are young and asymptomatic, that means we're allowing people into our country with COVID on a regular basis and not requiring anything of them at all. That, to me, is a fundamental failure of border security as it pertains to every level, but particularly the hypocrisy of COVID is glaring. I thought this was a positive sign. There's lots of talk right now about people having different opinions and about the massive difference in our country as it pertains to so many different issues.